Well, welcome to the Dream Labs of Dr. Contrast Live. It's great to be back on board here, gang, and just want to bring up to speed here about last week. A very difficult series of things here, and that I had to go through and went through, and really feeling a whole lot better here, and really glad to be back on board. So I just thought we'd kind of pick it up where we left off from about a week ago, and a really interesting thing took place here. I think just a bit of a review. I'm going to go back and look at a couple of things we did with this Manticore process, this very legendary beast that we developed over the last couple of weeks, and I think it was really interesting to see how it all began to unfold here. And I just thought I'd bring this sketch back and go a bit of a review and go into a little exercise today about getting into a final rendering on one of the compositions we've kind of selected to work with as a final piece to put this whole program together. So going back in the archives here, I just thought I'd bring this sketch back. There was something about the stance of this vehicle when we did it. And by the way, before I go any further, I just want to take a moment to thank all of you who were involved in the chat system over the last 2 to 3 weeks putting this program together. We started with just a simple concept. Looking at a dragonfly, for example, was one of the basic themes about how that began to function, the character of that. We started there and slowly moved from one element to another, kept the basic theme of the dragonfly with the quadra-wing system and the four-wing system, but also got into a lot of interesting things about munitions and military appearance and more aggressive-looking forms as opposed to a very round organic shape that the dragonfly began to portend. So we started that in that case, refined it week after week after week, sketch after sketch after sketch, and came down to this form here where it kind of typifies with that dragonfly concept. We're not going to call it the dragonfly, but that was a basic theme of getting the biomimicry piece put together for the Manticore. So you notice it's a very drooped wing system, very, very, very bold looking cockpit study, and again, a very high arch, for example, cannon system or munition system at the tail, and kept that dragonfly tail coming out in cantilever from the rear of the vehicle, and also these dual dihedrals, the upper dihedrals in the wing system. So that really helped kind of clarify it as well. But the thing I really liked the most about this sketch, and the public and the audience that did as well, was the overall stance of the very aggressive looking drop wing system with a lot of articulation going on. A little bit of clumsy in through here, for example. We refined some things. We'll show you in a moment here how that came about. And then added some munitions, secondary engine systems, and a real strong, bold cannon look, and a very bold. What really was interesting about the gesture here was the canopy drop, how it came uphill, dropped, and then dropped again. So it got a little more of an aggressive stance to it. Then, of course, the crown and glory is to get this thing into some sort of human scale, which I think we ended up to about maybe 20 to 40 meters in overall length of the vehicle itself. So we're pretty close to that here. And in addition to that, I went ahead and went back and roughed out a little bit of a composition in the background here, maybe a hangar system of some sort. I'm not quite sure if we want to go that route with a hangar system. We might go something a little bit more outdoors, a little bit more rugged, but I think it might just add to the composition as opposed to just being a lone vehicle here that we've got sitting on a landing pad of some sort of a platform where it rests. So that's where we started, for example, with sketch one. And by the way, we are going to do 2 complete renderings for the final program here. We're going to do one at rest, which is in this mode, and one in attack mode. And one I'm going to work on today is the attack mode, where we got a squadron of 2 coming in at a very steep dive angle and begin to put some graphics together on that. So this is the basic platform at rest. And from that sketch, I went in and did this. I just kind of modified it just a little bit and just show you here where we are. This is more of a refined system with the articulating wings. Notice we took some of the bulk out of this. Notice how there's a lot of overlap in the wing system up and through here, and a little bit clumsy and not too sophisticated or maneuverable for manipulation or motion. So we took that into account, trying to maintain this gesture as well, this uphill run. So I think we see it here much more clearly, where the cockpit has been aggressively maintained. The wing system's a lot more aggressive, much more simplified, has a little more of a sweetness to it, but it still has that same downhill drop to it, which I think is really giving it a lot of character. The cantilever cannon, we kind of put a new cannon system back up on the actual turret. This thing rotates back here. And then again, the upper dihedrals that begin to move or articulate in flight. So that's where we are. And this is the sketch, the final pencil study that I'm working on to put together maybe a composition in the background before I go back into the final rendering. So that'll be phase 2. But today we're going to work on this guy. So I just went ahead and set up a little bit of a line study. This is the attack mode from where we were. in the first go around. Let me drop this down a bit so we can see it here. This is the attack mode with a squadron of 2. And I'm going to spend some time today going through a very simple little wash system to get some graphics down, keeping it very highly militaristic, a lot of value grays. But the one thing I'm going to be very careful about, I'm going to do a little more research on, is that this is a Banu, kind of a Banu family of vehicles or ships. They've got a certain textural change to them and a little bit of color added to it. I'm not quite sure yet which way we want to go with this. Whether we're going to go very subtle, military-like, maybe some camouflaging greens and light blues, or color changes, maybe some golds and deep maroon. I'm not sure what that texture is going to look like. So I'm going to leave some space in these illustrations today to give us room to work with here. So I'm not going to finish these sketches today. I want to just get a good stain started, a good process started to make it very militaristic looking. And we'll go from there. So let's get this thing started here. I'll come back in and work light to dark and start putting some very basic surfaces in here. Just kind of get the canopy in place here of the upper. Start with a real nice set of cool grays just to wash it in. Get the body side in place here. And pardon me for moving around here just a little bit. Come through this, work around the engine system, down to the body form, and just get a real quick fast stain put in place here. Then we can work with it as we go here. Coming up underneath the front cannon system itself. And finish out some of the body work here, just kind of stain this in very quickly. Working with culprit marker, just good old-fashioned bond paper here. Very simple palette. Nothing extreme here, just kind of walking it through here. Keeping it nice and light until it's right. Then we'll work from there. Up on top of this wing system again. Just kind of stained it in. Get a process started. Going nice and easy. Then we'll start adding some tone to it as we go. Just kind of put a little more emphasis on this wing system here. I just turn this back and wash it through real quick scrubs. Just get a nice idea of what these shapes are going to start to look like here. Starting light, let's kind of tone it in first. So that's going to give me a bit of a body to work with here, just ever so slightly putting some surface to it here. Just going to get this lower piece in place, and then we'll start breaking it up here. A little more tone. While we're at it, we've got that second piece up on top here, that second squad member. We'll get him squared away in a moment here. Just want to get this first guy washed in. Now let's come back in and pick up that last turret. The cantilever coming off the wing system here, or the body form, pardon me. Just a real quick wash. Kind of set the form in motion. We'll make some variation changes here as we go through it. Up the upper dihedrals. Walk that in. Very simple pass. Of course, once this is all set too, and we get the actual process in place, we'll start putting a little more background and maybe a real aggressive looking sky tone of some sort. I'm going to give it a setting. Let the cannons explode just a bit here. A little bit of gun system on the end cap here. Drop that in place. Get that little sponson in place here as well. There it is. And a little bit of that piece here. So let's take a look at that. Just basic body architecture, just laying in some of the graphics here to get this thing started here. Hey, hi Chip. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Chip? Thanks for joining forces here today. And yeah, it does look familiar, doesn't it? So we're just kind of putting the pieces together here. Pardon me as I get this guy put together here. Just putting a little final comp together on the attack mode person of this piece. What do you think so far, Chip? So far, you like the composition? Now, this is part of your input over the last few weeks here. So I'm just laying in some very quick groundwork here. Most importantly, how do you feel? Hey, Chip, thanks very much. I'm feeling much better. That was a bit of a rough run last week. I really felt badly about the fact I couldn't go and didn't really get really sick. I just did not feel right. But back to 1,000% today, so I'm really happy to be back on board and I'm really pleased you're joining us. So feel free to join in here. Any comments you want to make, let me know. I'm just going to go through a bit of a review here. I'm going to go back in and just do a nice little composition study on this military piece, on the attack version first. And we've got a line drawing established here for the resting portion of this guy. I got a nice line study ready to go with that. I'm going to put some background into this. That'll be sketch 2. I don't know if it's going to be a hanger system of some sort or an outdoor piece, but I just think the stance of this is really cool, and I'll add some human scale as well as we go through it. But today, and this all came from, just to give you a quick review here, Chip, that all came from that sketch we did some time ago of that really overall very strong. You tried to join circle. Yeah. Don't I wish? I would have never made that one step iota. But going back to that sketch again, where this one seemed to be the really the forerunner of what we're looking at for the final go around on these 2 variations we're going to do for the final study on the Manticore. So let's kind of move along here, Chip. And today I'm going to concentrate just getting a good simple wash together for the actual graphics of this new machine that we're looking at here. So this is the attack mode here. And I'm just laying into some very simple washes to get it started. So let's pick it up where we left off here. Just nice and easy. Just laying in some real quick stains. And so once we find out what we've got here, we'll start to put it all together. So let's go back into this guy. Get the squad member. Party number 2 in place. Just really simple washes first. And we'll start laying some more stronger graphics in. I just want to set a real light palette first to get this guy started. Scrub it in very quickly. Just give it a nice little, get the body form in place. Come right through the shape itself. Take our time. Do a nice job of putting a real strong sense of graphics together for this guy. That's that. I'll put one underneath in this beauty here. Get that one sponson to work for us here. There it is. Let's get this secondary piece. We'll separate this in a moment here once we get some graphics laid in here. It's going to blend together, but it's really not. I'm just trying to, again, laying in a nice simple surface to deal with. Let's get that tail sponson in. There's the gunner system on the back 40 here. That rotating turret. We get a lot more drawing detail. One thing I like to do too is get all the surfaces in place first. Then begin to pick out the light source and the highlights and shadows on the surfaces we're going to work with here to really get them to function and clarify themselves. And get the dihedrals in real delicately. Not a lot of depth there, but it's still going to be part of the whole process, the upper portion. So there's a good start here. Let's get some high contrast graphics in this thing now. No, let's take it very simple. Let's go ahead and get into the shadow sides down here. Let's get this all set. A little bit of a tone change here. The back of this engine nacelle here. Staying that in. And most of this will be quite a bit of a stain piece first. Then we'll start adding a lot more detail as we go back into the process here. So let's get this down. Let's get this underbody put in place. The belly system, the back of the cantilever. Pardon me as I move this around quite a bit. Makes it a lot easier to stain surfaces in. Let's do the same thing back here. Let's get that guy put in place. Same process. Get that engine nacelle put in place. Yeah, we'll get a little bit of that crown underneath the engine nacelle right in there. Let's get that all set up. Come back in through here just a little bit. Offsetting this lower engine. Offsetting the lower engine. And that's that. Let's kind of take the first pass at getting this, with this cockpit laid in place here. Just slowly build the shapes. This is going to go a lot rounder as we go and develop it further. Just want to get the basic form in place first. Little by little, get the canopy in place here, a little bit of power to it. And as we detail this thing, we'll come back in and let a lot more drawing detail. I'm just laying in stains now to get this guy to kind of read through for us here. Let's get these engine nacelles laid in just a little bit. Turn back here a little bit. What do you think so far, Chip? Making sense for us? Very delicate set of circumstances. You don't want to push too far to the deep side yet. Make sure you got a nice series of stains going on here. Let's get this a little bolder with this engine nacelle change back here. And just grab it a little more boldly. Once we start to lay in some of the drawing detail, it'll take care of a lot of that. Let's get this little wing gap in place here. That'll tell us how to begin to maneuver this guy. Comes underneath. Let's get this beauty set up on this side. All right, Chip, there it is. What do you think? You've been with us right from square one. What do you think so far? So far, so good? Hey, thanks, Chip. Let's get that little bit of that wing system put in place here. Let's tuck it underneath here. Stop it there. Just going to put that in place. Back. Let's pick up that same process over here. Get the canopy in place. Pardon me for moving it right around just a bit here to get this stained in here. Get this cockpit laid in here. I'm going to come back in with some more tempera, more drawing information once we get this detailed in. Now let's get the nacelles in place here, bit by bit. That's that. Let's get a bit bolder in this underbelly here. All right, let's bring this back to square. What do you think? Just basic graphics there. Chip, we're going to kind of lay in here some very quick and dirty looking systems here. Oh, I'm going to put this one wing seam in here. We've got it. That's that. And that's that. So a couple little things here to add. Let's put these back in place so I know where I am. And let's kind of put a little bit of definition into here now. Go a little deeper with these engine nacelles. See if we come up with here. The intakes. A little bit of definition on the back side of this one. Tighten down that wing detail just a bit. And there as well. Let's see if I can get this guy to turn for us just a bit here. Let me bring this back up so we can see what we're looking at here. A lot of moving parts in this piece. I just want to make sure we just take our time to kind of block it in kind of quickly and nicely and clean. Then we can start to look at it here. Got to be symmetrical with both strips. Yeah, both ships. You got it. So there we are. Let me bring this back to norm here. Let me get some of the paper out of the way. This may be a bit of a problem. There we go. Let's get some of that out of there. Keep that one sheet underneath it. Maybe that'll help kind of keep it all together for us here. Here we are. Let's go back in. Let's finish off a little bit of this engine nacelle. Let's get this guy lined up a little bit more. Pardon me as I go. Get a pattern set here. And it should be good. That's going to be that. Let's put a little bit of high contrast in this thing. Let's get this guy in first. Pardon me. want to make you aware of the fact too, once this is all said and done, we're going to distribute them for print processing here for purchase. So hopefully we'll be all set to go with both variations, both in the attack mode here. And let's put a bit of high contrast in this guy. That's starting to look better, a little bolder. I just want to be very careful here, delicately, to build this thing up. Go from light to dark and make sure we've got the right set of circumstances. Get this be to kind of function for us here. Keeping it nice and subtle to begin with here. Now let's get a little more animated with this canopy here, so we can kind of get this up to speed. Put more tone in this thing now. Gonna build up the surfaces just little by little, making sure we've got the right breaks that we need here. Come underneath this thing. There's that chin. A bit of a gloss reflection in it. Same thing underneath on this guy. Doesn't take long, but once you get the pattern established, it makes it a whole lot smoother to work with. Instead of pushing it and trying to get too quick, too fancy, too fast, makes a huge difference in just the outcome here. Easy as you go. Pardon me for moving around quite a bit. I want to make sure we get the right attitude here and getting the stains put in place. Get across with this. Now we're going to come back in and get a little bit of a tone change inside this engine nacelle here. Kind of drop it back just a bit. Same thing there. And a touch in here. Let's put the underside of that wing surface in, get a little bit of tone change in that, and the shadow underneath. Little by little, we'll bring this thing out. There we go. Let's get the end of that engine nacelle in place here. Simple series of stains, but yet so delicate. Just make sure the balance is right. And when it's all said and done, we'll have a really good, let's get that secondary lower in here. Start putting this guy together. Overall stain first. And we'll come back in and pick the detail later. Goes to that. A real subtle change of pace in here. Let's get the lower cannon. Start to put a little bit of shadow in this guy. More definition. All right, let me stop there for a moment. Let's take a little evaluation. What do you think there? It's coming together all right? Hey, Shadow, man, this thing looks evil. Hey, how you doing, Shadow? Good to have you on board. Sorry, hey, fixing Silvertail. Hey, how you got you? I was fixing some garbage children's. Call yourself lucky. Hey, thanks very much. Good to have you on board here. I'm just going through the process here today just to kind of get some graphic stain put together here to get the impact that we want in the final go around for this attack version of the vehicle we're working on here. So let me just take a moment here and carry on. I just want to make sure the pattern's starting to fall into place nicely for us here, and without pushing it too far and too much detail too quickly here, so we don't lose the essence of it, what we're trying to establish. Let's kind of get this cannon lined up here. Let's kind of do this. Let's kind of separate this rotation here just enough. Let me come back up around here and let's get this guy put together here. Hey, Starship. Hey, Captain Nemo, how are you? Good to have you on board, Doctor. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us here. Let me turn this upside down and get a little detail on it. A lot of rotation here. And to get this guy to work for us here, let's kind of get this upper piece put together here. A bit of that cannon rotation. It's going to get some of these guys in place here now. Try to pick up a little bit of detail here. A little more tone back in that offset here. Where this engine piece is. It's going to by number 5 here. Let's see what that does. A little bit of secondary step in there. A little more tone in this thing, so it has a little bit more offset, so it doesn't look so shallow. There we are. I want to get a little more impact on this under this wing here. It's not quite deep enough. Let's get this all lined up. That's better. Starting to get some impact here. Let's get that same process up on the wingman number 2. I get too caught up here with this. I'm going to come back across with this thing. More drawing definition as we go back into this beauty. Let's get that underside nailed down just a bit more. Little by little, we're just slowly building the surfaces. It takes a lot of time here. Certainly not apologizing for the fact that the only thing I really feel badly about is having to move the palette around quite a bit to make sure that the sequencing looks good. It's all pretty abstract at this stage of the game, but I think that's what we want to keep it at. The Manticore has come a long way. Sure, it's found Sure it's final though? Yeah, I think we're going to be, I think we should be. I think it's pretty close here, Nemo. I'm hoping that we can kind of put it all together. Really nice. So hopefully we'll be okay here. We'll have to do as we can get the various pods. But man, I love, yeah, and the 3/4 view might be an interesting one too, Shadow. You're right. Let's kind of get this down here. Let's a little bit of change of pace on the end cap of this wing system here. Yeah, stated in the beginning of the program too, pointing out the fact that we're going to do another variation on the theme here as well. So we've got one in attack mode and one in the rested mode here. I'll show you in a moment as we get this kind of stained in. Obviously, what's missing here too, gang, is there's not a lot of background, and yet I'll start putting some sky tones or some pastel work into this thing once we get the body forms all squared away. The most delicate part now is to get the right balance here on some of the forms we're dealing with here on the machine itself. Let's get this little upper leading edge in this upward dihedral. There we go, bit by bit. So let's go back and look at a couple more little stain changes here. Try to get some of the panel configurations put together here on the wing forms. All right, let's stop there for a second. What do you think, gang? Pattern-wise, coming together all right? We're making it sense here. Really looks cool. Hey, thanks, gang. Just messing with you. That's all right, Channel. Or Nemo, I really appreciate the input here. Just going to go back and look at some things here. Let's kind of tone in some things. Really bring this thing up to life here. A little deeper there. A little deeper there. Much deeper here. Got a little bit more shadow in this thing now. Come back in and get that roundness, this bulbous side of the canopy to work with us here. Start with that. Get that shape to work. Might have a lot of reflection into it. Takes a little bit of time and patience here, gang, so thanks for your understanding here. Just trying to work very methodically here and not over push. I'm excited to see the shape unfold here. It's going to get this bulbous shape in place here. More reflection coming off of that side. Let's get back to this, get this gun system in place here. Oops. Break this down here. That's the one I want. Number 4. Let's just break this in place here. A bit of a light break. Okay, let me stop there for a second. What do you think? Hey, coming together all right? Should we dare suggest colors or let the doc just do his thing? That's a good question there. Shadow, I think I'd be really interested in getting some feedback on what you think as far as color goes. I'm going to leave enough area here for maybe putting some texture and color into the system. So the plan today is to get a good battle plan together for this graphic piece that we're going to put together. Say, Jed, hey, how you doing, Jed? Good to have you on board. Nice to see you here. Yeah, I love this balance. Yeah, I think just enough gray here to kind of put it all together, and then we'll really come back in and put some pieces together for color and definition and the like. So all that's yet to come. I just really want to concentrate on getting a real good solid balance on what we're after here as far as form goes. And once we have that, we'll get started. I really am conscious of the Banu language. I want to make sure we get that all squared away and not ignore the fact that there's going to be a bit of color, some skin texture on this thing. Absolutely necessary, no doubt. Let's put that into place. Let's put that into place. We'll come back with a little bit of a patch system in the actual canopy here. Yeah, I think to get the right breakup is going to really be critical here. Just the right balance of military look and skin. Let's kind of switch gears so we get this guy put together. Underneath there, just a little bit of the change of pace in this dihedral underneath on the underside of the process here. Let's get this guy squared away. As it turns away. Move that into place. There we go. I'm going to come back in here. Pardon the silence here, gang. I'm going to come back in. Once I get all these surfaces stained in, come back in and do some real delicate drawing work to define some of these shapes. These are just blocking in surfaces now. Not calling it a final at all. This is just a blockade system here to get the graphics put together. Start looking at some really spooky stuff here. hopefully you're going to see something come out of this thing now. Sorry for the silence here, gang. Just concentrating on trying to make this thing function. Now, let me stop there for a moment. What do you think, gang? It's coming together all right? What do you think of the presence here? Looking pretty good, I hope. All right, so first time with this design. Give me a play-by-play. What is this being used for? What is it used? We're sending it into SIG. Well, the real history of that is that the detail is just shades of gray. It's amazing. Well, I think it's just interesting. I want to keep it pretty militaristic here for what it's worth here, Chip. I think the process is really slow and methodical here. We're just kind of blocking in form, as I stated earlier. I think it's really delicate as we go here. Maybe I'm going to clean this thing up here just for a bit. Sorry. There we go. Let's tone that in. Well, to answer your question there, I think requires paying attention to you there, Shadow. Let's see. You never read my Discord. Going through my. The question was back up there. Oh yeah. All right. So the first time with this design. This design was set up on a process of getting into a dragonfly concept that we worked into the eventual processor. Get this Manticore process. So it's been about a 4-week system of putting it all together there, Silvertail. So it's been really interesting to go from start to finish here. Maybe at some point in the stream, if you join us again, we'll kind of bring up to speed on where this thing is headed and how we've developed it from point 1 all the way through to where we are today. It's been a very interesting process indeed to see what's taken place here. So we're just kind of blocking in the final shapes. It started out with, this is one of the first gestures we dealt with as this is the resting position. This is the second illustration that's going to come together for this thing. So that's what it is. It's really going to be more of a case of doing a landed version in the Dragonfly process, this Manticore, this very beast-like spaceship system. And then the second variation is the attack mode, which was this variation here in flight. So this is where we are as we speak. So I hope that kind of helps give you a real quick overview where we are here. I'm going to keep moving here just to kind of stain in some additional surfaces here. I want to make sure we get the right content. Let's get this guy down here. There we are. A little stronger. What's that? That comes into that. Lots of small little detail pieces. I want to make sure we really kind of capture them as we go here. Now let's do this. Let's take our time here. Come back in and just pick up some variations on theme here. That's that. That. We'll pick up some of these tail pieces in here. A little bit of the recess. Again, same thing up on top. Same thing down below here. Right above. Now I'm going to stop there for a moment. We're going to tighten this thing down a little bit more. So what do you think here, gang? All good. Let's see. Let me have any questions you can learn from. Definitely intimidating. Awesome design. Hey, you're looking pretty good there, Captain Nemo. How are you? Again, what do you think? I'm going to stop there for a second here, gang. Just get a feel for where you think we are. You know, it's pretty imposing right now. We're going to have to bring some of the drawing detail up, and we'll get that all squared away with a little more drawing definition. Let's kind of put some of these antenna systems in place here. Let's get that in place here. We'll put a little bit of touch up on top here. And don't forget, once you have to come, there's a lot more drawing definition, gang. So we're not quite there yet. We're close, but not quite there yet. I just want to make sure. Catch a couple more details up on top here that I missed. Sorry. A little bit of that break. A little bit of that break. And that shadow side underneath the wing itself. So let me stop there for just a second here, gang, and get your feedback on this thing. What do you think thus far? Making progress? All right, what do you think, gang? Let me stop right there just for a moment. What do you think? So far, so good? Pretty imposing looking? Once we add some, let's go back to Shadow's comment earlier in the presentation there. Let me just kind of stone this down. It's got to change up there. A little bit of pace here in this wing form. There we are. Let's get that down. And I think we're in pretty good shape here. I'll pick the chin up underneath it. That's kind of a minor piece there. I want to make sure we get that all squared away. Let's get a couple of cut lines in here. Now, let me stop right there. Just enough detail here. Forgot to add this. All right, I think we're in pretty good shape there. Got a nice pattern established. I think we've got some good neutrals. I think what's going to be really neat to kind of add to this thing now is the presence of color and taking some out of the wickedness out of it. Although I hate to do that, but nonetheless, that's what we're going to try and attempt to do here. Let me just kind of put some grading variations in this engine system here. Get that down. And there it is. I mean, that's a pretty good start, I think, to get this guy put together for us here. Let's just put a more detail up on top of this thing here. And let's kind of change pace just a bit back there. Get a little bit of this action in place here. There we go. So yet to come There's a lot of interesting little detail work. For example, getting more of that blistered canopy. In fact, let's do this before I forget. Let's kind of get this guy to round out just a bit more. I'm going to get this blister to really work in this canopy system here, this round. Now we're getting somewhere. We'll illustrate that more clearly once we get into some of this bit of shadow drop in this thing too. Let's get that roundness to work a little bit more. That's helping our casing. Just get that blister. We'll illustrate this as much rounder as we go here. Really does pop, and after going FK for a while, doesn't it? Okay, here we are. A little more drop shadow in this glass area here. One more thing here before we get too far down the road here. Make sure we get this guy to read this pod to a little bit more. A little more believable. Come back a little more definition in that. Get some of this, just some of these tendril lines in place here. That one, that one, that one, and that one. I'm going to save those discs for something else, maybe a little bit further down the line here. But there we go, gang. Let me see what you think there. What do you think? So far, so good. Coming along. I mean, it's got a bit of an imposing presence to it. Let me kind of line this up here just for a bit here. Wow. Hey, like, ooh, this looks good. All right, Chip. It's a pretty straightforward setup here for the time being. I just want to get the composition down, and once we start putting highlight back into it and get a little more drawing definition in this thing, I think you'll see a big change in what the process is. Just for what it's worth, let's kind of bring this back into play here just for a second. Get this little hip area here. Not so much of a lonesome end. Same thing underneath here. And we'll just add a little bit of tone to it for the time being. We'll come back and pick up more detail once we pick it up here. That, 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 and that. A bit of shadow underneath this guy. We'll pick up more detail as we go. There we are. And we got some more definition in there once we get it started. So there we are, gang. I mean, it's a loose, very loose first pass at laying in some graphics, and it's very intimidating looking at the time being. Once we put a little bit of color into this thing, decide putting some more definition with some highlight into it, I think we'll be in very good shape as far as a very very evil-looking set of circumstances to deal with here. Let me just stop for a second. Any commentary here thus far? So again, you like the composition? You like the way things are coming together? Not enough? Too much? Too little? What do you think, gang? This is your show. All right, let me stop there just for a second. All righty. Some pretty interesting things going on here, I think, overall. Let me just kind of line this beauty up. Honestly, I think it's just right. All right, Shadow. Hey, thanks very much, Shadow. It's good to have you on board. I hope you're doing fine. Let me just, I've got to add one little winglet back there I did not see, so pardonnez-moi. Just got to get this guy laid in here, part of the process. Just got to tone that down a little bit more. And again, over here. a little more tone in that, and up on top, and up on top. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, gang, and I just want to be very methodical and go through the process today of just getting it all set up in terms of where we want to go with this guy. So it calms the blacks. Yeah, it does calms the black. That's it. So what do you think, gang? Any other input here? Nemo, anybody still around? Looking good. Let's see. I'm going to pick up any questions. Oh, looks good. Chip just on the edge of being too big. On the edge of being, yeah, I think you've got it right. I think it just far enough. And I think once, to address your concern there, Chip, once we start going back in with color and some white definition and highlight and getting a sky tone in the back, and all of a sudden just kind of lift it up a little bit. My task is to make sure it doesn't become so ominous that you can't read what's going on here. So I think that's part of the process we're going to deal with here as we go forward here. So pretty interesting stuff. As a base model, I think it's dead on. Hey, pretty good. That's a standard start here, Shadow. And again, what's coming here, once we get that set up, this is going to set up a good pattern for phase 2, which is going to be the resting position. Once I get that all set, the graphics are set on this attack mode. We use the same set of graphics to get this all put together and put a little bit of background information in this composition. I think we should be in great shape. So I'm going to wrap it up with that today here, gang. Just kind of slow it all down, take our time, take a little bit of inventory before tomorrow's program, and go back in and do a little more drawing definition in this thing, and begin to analyze what we need to add to it to kind of give it a little bit more flair. Once we see that all unfolding, we can start to take advantage of putting more drawing or color definition into it. And if you have any commentary about that, please feel free to let me know. I'm going to add a little bit of definition in this line study here into the canopy. And there it is. So just really interesting. I mean, it's very imposing looking. That's what I wanted to accomplish based on your input from the program we had a couple of weeks back. I think once we get, as I said, part of being redundant, but once we get a lot more information into color, some atmosphere in the background, and put this thing in just some really interesting looking laser shots coming out of the Canon systems, we should be in pretty good shape here. So cannot thank you enough for the time spent here, gang, today. Really interesting set of circumstances, a lot of pattern work going on in the drawing itself, and thank you so much for joining forces here today. Much appreciated. And if you have any questions or things you want me to work on in the future program, I'll be doing these for the next few days just to kind of catch up on certain things, for example, that I missed from last week, this composition and the resting composition, and we'll go from there. And thank you, Shadow, Chip. It's always a pleasure to have you guys on board. Nemo as well, everybody who's joined forces, and everybody else. Really appreciate the time that took here to kind of join me today. And if you have any questions or concerns you want me to work on for future programs, feel free to drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. Feel free to do so. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll stay active here. And then last but not least, I've always ended this time, if you want to join my drawing program, please visit my website at drcontrast.com. We see a whole series of drawing definition, 9 programs that take you through the process from perspective to final sketch rendering work on my website. So again, that's at drcontrast.com. Thank you so much for the time today, and then I will close this off with this commentary because I think it's really the most important part of the whole program. Never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you certainly are. Dare to be great, gang. Thanks again. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. All the best. Thank you.